Welcome, followers, to a central and southern Queensland weather national cyclone update for 2015-16. And well, if you'd been on our page earlier on, you would have seen that the Bureau of Meteorology have put out their outlook for the season 2015 and 16 yesterday, which we did post to our page yesterday. But tonight we thought we would bring you a video update just to give you a little bit more of an understanding of what the Bureau of Meteorology are forecasting for this season. Well, the big news is that the El Nino is likely to decrease the Australian cyclone numbers this season. A less active Australian tropical cyclone season from November to April is expected for 2015-16. This outlook is driven by a strong El Nino, which typically reduces the number of cyclones observed in the Australian region. During El Nino seasons, the average date of the first tropical cyclone to cross the coast, which is about the second week of January, is later than during neutral years. So the Bureau is telling us that they're expecting that our first tropical cyclone for the season will perhaps start to develop and maybe cross the coast after the second week of January. The El Nino typically reduces the number of coastal crossings, but at least one tropical cyclone has crossed the Australian coast each cyclone season since reliable records began in the 1970s. So definitely cannot rule out that a tropical cyclone will cross the coast somewhere in the Australian coastline. Northern Australian coastal regions should still prepare for the cyclone season. Now, the Australian tropical cyclone season runs from the 1st of November to the 30th of April, and on average there are around 11 tropical cyclones each season, 4 of which cross the coast. However, tropical cyclones can still significantly impact coastal communities even when cyclones remain well offshore. While Eno shifts the odds towards both fewer cyclones and a later first cyclone coastal crossing of the season, it does not guarantee this will always occur. For instance, during the strong El Nino of 1997 and 1998, tropical cyclone Sid formed in late December near Darwin before moving into the Gulf of Carpentaria and weakening. The remnant low produced record devastating floods 2 weeks later over northern Queensland. So before we get into looking at what the Bureau are predicting for the Australian continent this season, I thought I would just go through and show you the different regions so that you have an idea of what we're talking about when we talk about the different regions. And our first region is what we call the Western region. The Western region lies in this area shown on the screen there, basically from the bottom of Western Australia up to around the Port Hedland or between Port Hedland and Broome area. So this area is what we call the Western region. Our next region is what we call the Northwestern region, and this runs from halfway between Port Hedland and Broome right around to near the Northern Territory Western Australian border there. The next section is what we call the Northern region, and this basically encompasses the top end of the Northern Territory. And our final region is what we call the Eastern region, and this is from around about the Gulf of Carpentaria right down through to the Queensland and New South Wales border. So those are the 4 main regions that we talk about when we are talking about cyclone impacts. So let's see what the Bureau say is what we can expect this season. And firstly, we're going to start with the Western region. Now, the Western region is expecting around 6 cyclones this season. It's likely to experience fewer tropical cyclones than average this season, with a 25% chance that there could be more tropical cyclones than average, which means there's a 75% chance of fewer tropical cyclones than average. Now, typically, about 15% and 40% of tropical cyclones in the western region will have an impact upon the coast. Now, the outlook accuracy for the western region is low, and that's just because of the unpredictability that can lie there in the Indian Ocean. Now we have a look at the northwestern subregion, and it's most likely to experience fewer tropical cyclones, around about 5. Now this is fewer than average this season. It's got a 15% chance of more tropical cyclones than average, and an 85% chance of fewer tropical cyclones than average. Typically, 5 cyclones form in or pass through this area each season. Around 40% of tropical cyclones in the northwestern subregion impact on the coast at some stage in their life cycle. Now, the outlook accuracy in this region is considered moderate. If we now look in the northern region, and they are likely or most likely to experience fewer tropical cyclones than average this season, with a 36% chance of more tropical cyclones than average, 64% chance of fewer tropical cyclones than average. So the Bureau are forecasting that just 3 cyclones may form in this northern region. In an average year, the northern region typically experiences 3 cyclones and 1 or 2 tropical lows that later become cyclones after moving into the western or eastern regions. About 3/4 of the tropical cyclones in the northern region impact the coast, and the outlook for this region is very low. Reason for that again is just because of the unpredictability of the Euphora Sea, with Indonesia and countries like that lying to the north of it, which can also influence just how tropical cyclones may behave in this region. Now we have a look at the eastern region, and the Bureau of Meteorology is saying that about 4 tropical cyclones may develop in this area this season. So it is most likely to experience fewer tropical cyclones than average this season, with only a 27% chance of more than average, which is a 73% chance of fewer than average developing. Now, about 1/4 of tropical cyclones in the eastern region make landfall, and the outlook accuracy in this region is low. And again, that is because the Coral Sea can be very, very unpredictable at the best of times, and so therefore it makes it very hard to predict just what the Coral Sea is going to do from season to season. But the Bureau of Meteorology are fairly confident that there should only be about 4 tropical cyclones to develop in this region on this season. So there you have it. That is the outlook for the 2015-16 cyclone outlook season. And don't forget that if you do want to keep up to date with everything that's happening cyclone wise and just normally during the normal season, you can always log on to Southern and Central Queensland Weather on Facebook, or head over to the Australian Bureau of Meteorology, who are the paid professionals that do all this stuff, so they will really know their stuff. Also check out Oz Cyclone Chasers. They are very comprehensive in their coverage of cyclones and their predicted behaviour. And you can also log on to Higgins Storm Chasing through Facebook as well, who also keep you up to date with everything that's happening in the weather. So thanks very much, and we'll be doing an update for when the Bureau release the outlook for just the Coral Sea region of the Australian continent.